Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Crashlands 2. So for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel where I just have a look at the first 2 hours of a game because that's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind about a game in that time. I think that's a generally good rule and would say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes and you can make up your mind on your own. Right, so Crashlands 2, what do we say here? Is it worth your time, worth your money? Well, if you sit in a certain category, of which I do not. There are some cool things in here, but for the most part, I'm not really a fan. But I'm not a hate bait channel either, so I'll do my best to explain it. The pros I could say is I think the art's really quite gorgeous, and they've done something interesting with some of the design elements as well. Examples being your dude has like exaggerated bounding as you move across the landscape, which I think is cute and in keeping with the entire flavor of the direction. I could also see that driving people insane. But the way that buildings cut away is very clever. You don't build roofs per se because it's got that isometric perspective. So you build out walls. There's a pillar system. So there's only so many walls tied to pillar, essentially the corner of your little cabins. And I can only assume that that limitation has to do with the way that it generates rooftops on top of that. But once you build like a 4x4 or 5x5 or whatever it is and move in and out through the door, it cuts away the walls and the roof very well. So that's cool. And I think the soundtrack absolutely slaps and bangs. And you could consider this a positive, but if you loved Crashlands 1, this is absolutely Crashlands 2 in the same vein that it could be called Crashlands 1.5. Everything from the original game is there. Certain elements like the humor I have, I suppose you could say, aged out of or been worn down by this kind of humor to the point where I would say I hate it. I kind of really dislike the writing that's going on here. Now, I'm a bit funny with humor in general anyway, but I don't know, what category would you put it in? Because like I was thinking about, there's cringe humor, things like dad jokes and all that sort of stuff. There's still a wholesome wholeheartedness to a dad joke, knowing it's kind of cringe, but wearing its heart on its sleeve. You've got edgy, vulgar jokes, and I've got time for all of these things when it's done right. But if you have dad jokes, then maybe you have mum jokes. This feels like Karen jokes, the sort of humor that got done to death in a way in the Marvel universe. Sardonic, snarky, goes on and on with the back and forth. Yeah, think of the parent that grew up and wouldn't let the kids play outside, sprayed them with disinfectant 17 times a day, and put rubber corner stoppers on all the sharp edges in their house. That's the sort of humor. It feels like HR humor. Oh, I've got it. It feels like the people that wrote Glee or watched Glee and thought, oh, I can't wait to write my own humor, grew up and wrote this. So look, maybe that makes you jump up and buy it. And, I hope we never meet, but I'm very glad that I could find a game that you like and show it to you so that you can pick it up and have fun. Like, at the end of the day, pick your poison and each to their own. But yeah, that's probably the best one. If you think that sort of humor is good, you'll be in for a ride here because it's almost a 50-50 split. While this game has building and crafting and grinding as a gameplay loop, it really does feel like it holds you hostage to tell you it's walls and walls and walls of text of flogging a dead horse with the jokes and the writing. So yeah, it wore out that welcome very quickly. Again, it could just be personal taste. I don't live in such a self-centered bubble to not realize that humor is obviously subjective and to each their own. And while I've been a bit cheeky in my descriptor, I think even if you disagree and you think this sort of thing would be funny, you at least understand what sort of humor it is by my attempt to categorize it. One thing I find insufferable, and people can label me with an anti-woke brush if they really want, but the first main quest giver that you get's a they, them. Here's the thing. There's a cart before the horse argument. I'm not so worried about the they, them culture bullshit so much as if you have a written text game and you use plurals like it's reasonable and to the point where it confuses the reader as to whether you're talking about multiple people or not, that's a fail in English. Fuck off. I don't really care. And it's 2025 now. Previous years, I was willing to engage and try and explain explain, but honestly, this year Scarlett says bad actors get called out. I don't care. Don't do it. It's poor use of the English language, and as someone who actually appreciates reading, I don't appreciate this nonsense. Now, all of that said, gameplay. I mentioned before, this is very much Crashlands 1 all over again. Now, I played that back in the day. I've enjoyed riding the indie wave since well before my channel. But what I do remember about that was it was very long in the tooth. The loop, as it were, the grind is fairly simple and basic, and then ad infinitum. So your tolerance for a repetitive loop will be tested here. However, again, there are people that lap that up. There's a reason things like World of Warcraft are famous. I struggle with MMOs because I find the repetitive grind to just be too much. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy a grind, I really do. But in this case, this is one of the extreme cases. So if you find yourself looking for a single player, mindless, and I'm not trying to be mean, but there's something to be said about using your relaxing time to maybe turn on a podcast, zone out, and just grind at something repetitive. I get that. That's really what's going on as far as the grinding and crafting. And one thing that I'm a bit miffed about, I don't know, I can't tell, but my knee-jerk reaction is that I think it's not good, is that through the course of research with your they-them mate, who we will call he researches things for you, and it's actually quite clever because he's sort of a companion, friend, acquaintance. Through the course of the story, you blow up his house crash landing. If you rebuild his house and meet his minimum requirements for like a comfort level, it will increase his research speed. And in that case, it was just rebuild the house, put some doors on it, pretty basic tutorial stuff. But I like that. I think that's very clever. That's a cool way to interact with side characters and buddies and friends. But he'll be researching things away, and some of them will be new items, but he's also researching like things that you already harvest, like ray bands or whatever. That's not what they're called, but it's something like that. But there's grass, right? You attack the grass, you harvest the grass, it drops grass. But you can research the grass plus, and now it will drop something like bits of clay. I'm just making up an example, but you get the idea. It's making it so that the drop table changes and adds more stuff into there. And I don't think I like it. Like, yes, it's innovative, and in a way, it's very in line with this Crashlands 1 philosophy of we're just going to grind and grind and grind. But you're still going to grind the same things. It's going to start dropping some more shit, but presumably I'm going to keep researching and this grass will keep dropping new stuff in its table. And to me, you know, it's a path taken where the other one would have been, well, maybe we extend the biome and there's more grass, or there's a different type of grass that drops clay or what have you. So it seems a little bit strange to research to augment a loot table to add more resources into it. Again, this might be absolutely celebratory stuff if you really enjoy the mindless grind, as it were. Also, it seems to me that this must be a mobile port. That's going to make some people turn off immediately. I don't really particularly mind. I think if a game's good, it doesn't really matter, and it can transcend all of that. I'm not prudish about the controls. However, in some ways, it does feel mobile and it doesn't quite work so well. Other ways, there are some very innovative, clever stuff when it comes to like combat. You sort of toggle on the item you're using and it creates an area telegraph. So you use telegraphs for your attacks and also for your harvesting, little arcs in front of you. So you press E to bring out your harvesting tool and you can just run around freely with this arc, and then you click to activate it. It's cool, it's clever, but when you come into combat and interplay and these enemies jumping at you with their little telegraphs and you dash around, it's actually pretty cool. And even at the entry level, with a few hours under my belt, I've come up against some dudes that will do like area, but it's not just a circle blast radius. It's almost like a cog or spokes on a wheel, and it will have little gaps within the circle and you can dodge in between them. So it's some pretty rudimentary entry level raid boss mechanics, a la, like I said, MMO style. So that telegraphing is interesting, and so when it comes to combat, reading them and dodging around and getting your jabs in and all that, there is a bit of an interplay. Dare I say, there's a skill to it. So like I said, the UI and the controls can feel a bit clunky because they've clearly made some considerations for mobile interface, which hurts the PC experience. But at the same time, there is still some innovation in there. when it comes to, well, for example, those telegraphs. But look, anyway, obviously I'm pretty mixed on this. Well, not mixed, I'm probably not going to play it again. And that's not even necessarily because it's like a burning pile of garbage, but it's because I just have so many high quality games to play. This doesn't really pass the being tall enough to get on the ride. The gameplay loop, I can see the merit in it. Again, put on a podcast, whatever, zone out, grind to your eyes bleed, that's fine. But it would be so much more tolerable if, and I'm going to use it again, and we might make this more regular because as dumb as saying as it is, people get it when you say it. This game insists upon itself. It very clearly thinks its writing is good, and it really, really wants you to revel in it as much as the writer did. And so you end up clicking through screens to the point where I don't really know what's going on because the writing's so insufferable, and it puts you into these little side quests that are narrative stacked. There were two dudes arguing in their garden, these bug people, about how best to harvest Ray-Band grass, and made me do a dancing mini game where I just had to dash around the garden while it cracked jokes, and it just went fucking on and on. And it's a classic case of no oversight over a developer or writer that sits in a bubble surrounded by people that backpat them on everything that they do. Am I being harsh? Maybe. But perhaps they should have heard some of this criticism before they released it. Because I've mentioned probably 5 different things in this video that people will fundamentally refuse to buy your game because of them, all separately and not all politically motivated. And if only you had someone actually tell you about this stuff when you were developing the game. But on the other side of it, good for you for sticking to your guns, developers, if you ever saw this or whatever, and I wish you nothing but success within your bubble, and hope whatever that audience is, of which I am not part of, you find. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.